Hello, it's 11 GMT. That's 1 p.m. in Gaza, which has endured a morning of mass killing from north to south. One of the latest Israeli airstrikes has targeted Gaza City. First responders and displaced people are among the dead. One strike killed at least 10 people. Palestinians say the airstrikes are deliberately targeting civilians. There's also been intense street-to-street battles. The Israeli army says it's engaged in the heaviest fighting since it began its ground invasion 5 weeks ago. The military says it's pushing deeper into the southern city of Khan Younis, Gaza's second biggest city. Imogen Kimber begins our coverage.
In what's being described as the heaviest bombardment since Israel's war began, almost all parts of Gaza are under attack. The north, the south, and the central region. Ground battles are taking place around Khan Younis in the south. Israel says its troops surround the city, Gaza's second largest, and are supported by fighter jets and warplanes. Desperate Palestinians are fleeing to Rafah, 10 kilometres away, many by foot.
What is left in Gaza? Where is the world? How long will this misery last? Let the world watch our children lining up for water. We fled from Khan Younis to Rafah. Here we are in Rafah. We do not know where to go. We are sleeping in the streets.
The World Health Organization says the situation is worsening by the hour in Gaza, and the risk of disease is increasing rapidly due to the lack of sanitation.
We moved to Rafah because of the heavy bombardment. Because of my injury, I fainted when we moved to this school, and I was taken to Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital. The doctors told me I have hepatitis. I'm worried I'll infect my whole family.
The United Nations says nowhere in Gaza can be considered safe, not even shelters flying the UN flag.
It's not a safe zone if it's only free from bombardment, as some zones have not been. It's a safe zone when you can guarantee the conditions of food, water, medicine and shelter. Okay? Now, I've seen for myself, these are entirely absent. You cannot overstate this. These are tiny patches of barren land, or they're street corners.
In northern Gaza, Israel has been targeting the largest refugee camp, Jabalia, once again. Palestinian media say civil defence teams are struggling to rescue people trapped under the rubble. In central Gaza, another refugee camp, Al-Nusayrat, has come under attack, as have residential buildings in Deir el-Bala and Al-Zahra, with dozens of Palestinians killed or injured. Hamas says ceasefire talks or discussions about the release of Israeli captives cannot take place until the violence stops.
There will be no negotiations or exchange of captives until the aggression against our people and the Gaza Strip stops. We hold Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu fully responsible for the lives of the Israeli hostages.
80% of the population, that's almost 2 million people, have been forced from their homes. But soon, there will be nowhere left to go. Imogen Kimber, Al Jazeera.
And Hani Mahmoud is joining us now from Rafah in southern Gaza. And Hani, you know, those people that are forced from their homes, they're really facing some impossible choices because where do they go to? They were told to go to the south where you are, and we understand the south has been experiencing bombardments as well.
Yes, indeed. Very difficult situations for displaced population right now. More than half of Gaza population have been displaced, but within just the past few minutes, we're getting confirmed reports about more atrocities taking place overnight and early hours of this morning. And since we're talking about how people are trying to seek a shelter, refuge, what happened, a group of displaced people at the center of Gaza City, the old Gaza, that's the eastern side of the western part of the Gaza City. We're trying to evacuate with the help of civil defense crew. When they were targeted, at least 10 people were reported killed. That's an example of how unsafe Gaza has become. There is no safe place across the Gaza Strip from north to south. Even the areas that have been designated as safe area for people here are coming under constant heavy bombardment. Here in Rafah, the eastern side of Rafah has been under heavy bombardment since the first week of the war. I'm talking about an entire neighborhood that have been under constant airstrikes and artillery shellings, and the vast majority of those of residential homes in that neighborhood, the Junaina neighborhood, have been destroyed, where people have been forced to move to the western side of Rafah. But the tragedy of all of this, that Rafah is packed now. There are extreme living conditions. People lack all the necessities, all the basic supplies in terms of food supplies, water supplies. In terms of a space now, Rafah is running out of a space. It has already been populated with people, and now with more people are pouring into the city from Khan Younis, running for life, particularly the eastern side of Khan Younis, where the vast majority of people were forcibly displaced under heavy bombardment all the way to the center of Khan Younis. As of this report, the making of this report, we've seen scores of people just in this tiny area next to a Kuwaiti hospital. People are moving with whatever they could get their hand on of belongings. Some just came walking all of this distance because they could not take any of their stuff. Khan Younis is becoming under heavy bombardment, similar to what's going on right now in the northern part, where Jabalia was hit at earlier hours of this morning, Fallujah area, and then Block 2 was under heavy bombardment, as well as Deir al-Balah of early hours of yesterday's evening. We're seeing atrocities, tragedies, and more displaced people. But what is common among all of this is the misery of living. The living conditions are becoming very difficult, and people are having a great deal of uncertainty what's going to happen. This is the last point that they can be they're displaced to. They don't know where to go after that. The only option they have is the Egyptian border, which uncertain what will happen next.
Hani, and in terms of the reports that there are street-to-street battles going on, where are those focused primarily? And also, what sort of resistance is being put up by the Al-Qassam fighters and the other Palestinian factions on the ground?
Yes. The reports we're getting from Gaza City and the northern part, the vast majority of these battles and confrontation are taking place in a Shuja'iyya neighborhood, where massive number of Israeli tanks and armored vehicles have surrounded the neighborhoods within the past 2 days, and keep pushing inside the heart of the neighborhood. It's a very densely populated area. Now, there is an Israeli claim that there is an entire Qassam battalion inside the neighborhood, and they are adamant at destroying it. The vast majority of the residential home in that area were bombed and completely leveled to the ground in an attempt to provide more roads to the tanks to push deeper into a Shuja'iyya neighborhood, as well as in Jabalia, a refugee camp, Fallujah, and Block 2, where it was heavily bombarded last night, and tanks and armored vehicles were pushing slowly under the clearance of the massive airstrike that destroyed the large parts of the refugee camps. We happened to watch a video by the United Nations officials who were driving at the surrounding area of the refugee camp, and we could see the sheer amount of destruction shown by the video, with comments coming from people on the car about the shock that they are having as a result of seeing the level of destruction that they will take years to come to rebuild the refugee camp.
All right, thank you so much. Hani Mahmoud reporting from Rafah in the Gaza Strip.